a set of assignments, and those assignments will be for 15%, right? Then we'll have a project, and this project will also be for 15%. As I said, the project will focus on developing a good software design document. And usually what I do for the project is that I'll give you one of the software requirements document from one of the old, my 417, 418 teams, right? One of the senior design project teams. And usually I select the one which has some problems in their requirements document, and then we'll be using those requirements documents to come up with a design document. Now, again, keeping in mind that we may be online for a significant part of the semester, rather than having the midterm exam in a traditional way or the traditional quizzes we usually have in the classrooms, I am aiming for 4 assessments, each assessment worth 10%. Now, these assessments will be carried out on Blackboard. I'm not sure about the time yet. It's whether it will be half an hour assessment or a 45 minutes or a 1 hour assessment. I haven't thought about it yet, but there will be 4 of them. And the reason I have come up with the 4 because so that the material is manageable for you, and we can have a periodic assessment. And of course, the final exam, hopefully it will be face-to-face, a normal traditional exam, and it will be 30%. Any questions on the assessment, guys? Because this is the most critical thing for today.
Yes, Doctor.
Yes, go ahead, please.
What are the types of questions we will have?
Okay. Now, what I did last time was it was a question. Design is with design it will be a bit challenging because usually we like to have drawings of class diagrams and how we can apply different design principles to modify an existing code or a structure of a system. So it's not that easy to come up with an MCQs and matching questions for this. So to be honest, I'm still thinking about what I can do. For example, last week when I did my assessment for the testing course, I did it using Teams and asked the students to turn on their cameras and basically share the exam with them, and they can solve it on a piece of paper and then scan it and return it back to me through the Blackboard. All right. But probably we'll figure it out what's the best way of doing it. This is something which is a bit unknown at the moment. Any questions on this, guys? But for sure it will be through Blackboard. It could be a combination of MCQs, matching questions, and maybe some short questions as well.
Doctor.
Yes, please.
Can you send us the dates of the assessment?
Yes, I'll just talk about it very shortly, inshallah. You're welcome. So this is a tentative schedule. Since the question was on the dates of the assessment, so I have penned down certain potential dates for the assessment. The first one we are aiming for is September the 30th. And I put it in week 5 because in week 4 we have the national holiday. So this doesn't mean that this assessment will have all of this material. Probably it will still have 3 weeks material, but we'll see, inshallah, right? But I put them this here so that we do the assessment after we are back from our national holiday. Then the second one will be on October the 21st. The third one will be on the November the 11th, and the last one, inshallah, will be towards the end of the semester. Any other question, guys?
Yes, Doctor.
Go ahead, please.
What what is the project for the semester? Is it a coding project, design project, or what is it?
Okay. Now, for the project, what we do is we want to, at the end of the project, the product will be, you will come up with a software design document because this is a design course, right? Now, this software design document is usually a very large document, so we'll be doing it into maybe 3 or 4 phases. And I'll be giving you a software requirements document from one of the senior projects, right? So that you get, you as a student get an experience of actually designing an application for someone else requirements. So I'll give you a design document, and this is a requirements document, and this requirements document will have all the requirements structured in a typical SRS structure. And then I'll ask you to go on and go and develop designs for that application. So at the end of the day, you will have a software design document, which will have probably the class diagram, which will have the, the sequence diagrams and many other things. There is a question which from Abdul Majid. He says, should I make an STD for a small project or just a big one, big project? I will be giving myself, I'll be giving you the requirements document of a senior design project. So that will be a larger requirements document. Because at the end of the day, I want you to be ready for your design document for the next semester or whenever you will be taking your senior design projects. Any other question, guys? Before we move on.
Yes, Doctor, I have a question.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead, please.
How many students should be for gather for the team for the project?
Now, usually, because it again depends on how many students we'll have at the end of the semester, end of this week. So maybe 4 to 5, but I'll see, inshallah, I'll judge it.
All right, thank you.
Because this is going to be because this is going to be a real requirement. So basically, it will have a lot of work involved in it. So it will not be a small team.
The second question is, can we gather a group team for other section, for example, between section 1 and 2?
Oh, it's a good question. Absolutely. Yes, I'll allow that, inshallah, because it's the same course. So, and Blackboard, if you guys have noticed, it will be, inshallah, all combined. So yes, for sure. Yes, for sure.
All right, thank you.
Shall we move on? Any other question, guys? Everybody's comfortable with the assessment plan?
Yeah, looks fine.
Looks fine. Perfect. Good. Great. Okay. So just to give you a bit of heads up on the schedule of the course, I'll be starting off, and probably I'll talk about this very shortly. Software processes, just a brief introduction to software processes, and basically the whole idea is to make sure we are comfortable with where the design is in this whole process. Then I'll be spending some time on object-oriented design. Again, I'll be starting with very basics. Some of these concepts, I'm pretty sure you might have learned, and for sure you have learned from your 1 or 2 days even, but my focus will be slightly different. My focus will be on design itself. And there are certain very fundamental concepts I like to make sure that all of us are absolutely crystal clear on it. So we'll be focusing on this maybe for a set of lectures. Then we'll talk about certain design principles and more importantly, the flexibility, the reusability and efficiency principle. Then we'll be spending about 2 weeks on architectures, software architectures, and what are the different architectures we have, and what's the. And we will not be just. I'll not be just showing you architectures, but the whole idea is, as I said in the somewhere in the course objectives, we just don't want to just come up with knowing the information. No, we are interested in knowing the information and also be able to analyze it and understand that for a given project, what are the multiple object options I have from a design perspective, and I need to select which one. Right. So we'll be focusing on this, inshallah. We'll be focusing on package designs. We'll be focusing on class designs. Then we'll be talking about design patterns. Design patterns are actually certain well-established designs which people have done over the years, and they have worked fine in the industry, so they have been cataloged for us. So we'll be going through a set of design patterns. And of course, certain good design principles. Then towards the end of the semester, we'll be focusing on something called refactoring and software construction. And in the week 15, inshallah, we'll have some presentations. Any questions on this, guys? Dead silence, I'll assume all good, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So inshallah, this document is, by the way, already available in the Blackboard. So let's start with the very first basic concept lecture. So let me share with you. Are you able to see the presentations, the slides?
Yeah, it's on.
Yes.
Yes.
Good, perfect, good, good. Still working fine, right?
Yep, yep.
Okay. Let me grab my pen. Now, we'll use today just to refresh some of the basic concepts, right? And just to make sure that, we are on board and we understand that, where design falls in this whole exercise. So we'll be just very quickly trying to review the processes and understand what are the different phases in them. Now, what's a process model? Can someone help me understand what's a process model? What comes to your mind when someone says, I have a process model?
It's like the steps that we do when we develop a software from the requirement to implementation.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So at the end of the day, a process model helps us describe what? It helps us describe what are the different tasks that needs to be performed, in which sequence we need to perform them, and under what conditions, if there are any conditions for this sequence, and eventually who will be doing it. And at the end of the day, we want a desired result, right? Now, for example, from a software perspective, what are the potential tasks for a process?
Design for requirement and design.
Yes, so design, the requirement, they are all tasks we have. Do they have a sequence? What I mean by sequence here?
Order.
The order. So for example, what could be an order in a process model?
Gathering requirement, then design, like that.
Absolutely. So we need to gather requirements, then we go on and design it, and so on and so forth, right? Now, sometimes there could be conditions. Can we think of a condition? Sometimes we can have conditions.
The language we should develop then.
Yes, yes, those are definitely conditions. But let's think about from a process perspective. What could be the conditions within a process? Between
After
these tasks. Go ahead, please. I lost that. Yes, constraints or budgets. Yes.
phase, after the gathering phase, we cannot made any more requirements.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Like for example, if you're using a waterfall model, it is a rigid process, right? So it says to you that you cannot do and changes into the requirements, because once you're done with the requirements, that's it. You move on to the design. You cannot come back. Okay. And what will be our desired results? What do we mean by desired results?
Meeting the requirement.
Yes, or coming with a software which is a good quality software, right?
Yeah, satisfy the client.
The client requirements, the stakeholder requirements, so on and so forth. Okay, so a process model is something which consists of tasks. These tasks have certain sequence, and usually they can have some conditions as well. At the end of the day, you come up and try to use the process models to come up with a software application which has a good quality. That's the whole idea behind this. Now, these process models also gives you guidelines and gives you a certain systematic coordination and control for these tasks, and of course that who will be performing these tasks. So you use these tasks to also come up with your schedules, as we have certain comments in our chat. So you use these tasks to come up with your budget estimates. You can use these tasks to come up with a schedule. And of course, if you're using a waterfall model, this means you have to do requirements first, and then you do design, then you do coding, testing. If you're using an agile, this whole structure of the tasks are completely different. Cool.
That's clear.
Okay. A quick question for you guys. Do we need a process if the project requires only 1 or 2%? Like it's a very small project. Do I really need a process?
Yes, I think we will need it.
Why?
In terms of reusability.
In terms of reusability, yes.
It not depends on the person that work on the project. It depends on the software itself.
Yes, it depends on the software itself. Yeah. Now, what if I say it's a small project, I'm just gonna do the coding, and I'll just say, I don't need to do a requirements document. I don't need to do a design document. Then do I really need a process?
Yes, doctor, we need a process.
Why?
Because probably there will be someone else will work on this project later to fix bugs, for example, or improve something, implement a new feature.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there always will be people who might need to work on this. Hence, they need somehow some documentation, some information, right? Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if I say I'm gonna use Agile, right? I don't believe in documentation. I'm just gonna go and do the coding. Do I still need a process?
Yeah, there will be a simpler process for it.
Yeah, so still is a process. Agile itself is a process.
Yeah, it counts as a process.
The process, exactly. So yes, we need a process, right? Regardless whether it's a small project or a large project. Of course, if it is it's a large project, naturally you need more complex processes. So if it is a small project, like if it's a very simple case, like our 1 or 2 assignments, for example, right? The ones you guys did maybe a couple of years ago. So basically what you guys used to do, have a problem statement, start coding it, right? Then compile it. If there is a compilation or syntax error, you go back and debug it. If it works fine, you do a bit of testing of it and say, whether it works fine or not, right? If you still face some issues, you go back and debug it and you continue this. Eventually, you release the system or submit the assignment, right? So this is one of the most simplest process, right? And it usually works fine for small applications, right? Do you see any design here?
No.
Yeah, so there is no formal design here, right?
No requirements.
Yeah, no, not such as a formal requirements either. Basically, it's just you have simple problem statement, small application, you just start coding it, right? Now, the moment you have larger systems, which is the reality of the world, and since they are large, they will be more complex. Usually, you cannot just do this exercise, right? You need a bit more stability and clarity on the requirements before you can do anything. And you need careful design. Of course, this is our focus for the semester. And you need to test your systems, and eventually you need to also see, what kind of databases I'll be using, what kind of network protocols I'll be using, how I'm going to control the code, because I will have maybe hundreds of people developing the system, right? So on and so forth. Is this clear? Why we need to extend the simple process?
Yeah, looks
Yes.
fine.
Looks fine. Now, I have a question for you. If I'm using agile process, right, then in a typical agile process, what happens? You have some requirements and basically you just start coding it, isn't it? So isn't an agile process something similar to this?
To some degree, yes.
To some degree, yes, right?
But also they have a daily meeting to know where they are, to understand each other.
Yes, yes, yes.
In Agile, we have a vision or a big goal. So we just that.
Yes, so we have in other words, in agile, as one of our students also said, in agile, basically, yes, it's a process where you go on and you don't focus a lot on documentation, but still you have user stories, correct?
True.
So this means you still have some clarity on the requirements, right? You still have some requirements. Of course, your design documentation is slightly different. It's not like a typical waterfall design document, but still there is a design and it evolves and so on and so forth, right? So in other words, different processes will help you understand and design in a different perspective, okay? Is this point clear? And I'll come back to this point again very shortly, because this is my most important point for today. But before I talk about this in detail, is this transition making sense, right? That you can have a simple process while you can have a bit more, complex process, because the system itself is large and it's more complicated, right? Because you need more team members to go and develop it. These team members could be all over the globe. They could be, for example, a team sitting in US and a team sitting in London and a team sitting in Tehran, right?
Right.
Okay, so let's move on. So in other words, we need to have a set of tasks. These tasks needs to be done in a sequence of flow. These tasks will have some inputs and outputs, and may have certain pre and post conditions as well. And eventually, you need people who will be able to actually go on and do the tasks. Can somebody help me understand what are the tasks in a process? Requirements is a task, correct?
Yes.
Design is a task, isn't it?
Yes.
And so forth, right? So you will have different tasks. These tasks will be done in a certain flow. Like for example, if I'm using a waterfall model, what's the flow?
Should be one task without going back.
Exactly.
Keep going through the task.
Just keep going through the task. And it's so if for example, if I'm using a waterfall model and my task is design, what will be the input of this one?
The requirements.
The
Requirements.
requirements. And what will be the output?
Design document.
The design document. Yes, please. Someone said something in the middle. Okay, so your input will be the requirements document and your output will be a software design document. Of course, if you're using a waterfall model, this means you can have a precondition for your task as well, right? That you cannot start a design unless the requirements has been done, correct?
Exactly.
And so on and so forth. Now, let's look at some of these traditional software design, software development development processes, right? Now, the most simpler one or the most earlier one was that you go on and do the requirements first, right? Then you go on and do the design. There should be coding here somewhere. So you do and do the code or the coding, then you do the testing, and then you do and release the package. This is one of the most simplest traditional process which came on. And of course, this was done because what's the chaos reports, right?
What measures the success of softwares?
Yes,
and
so
how
basically,
complex.
outcome and their failures, and it keeps reporting on how many projects have failed and how many have successed and what could be the reasons for that, right?
Right.
So when they started this chaos reports way back, maybe 20-25 years ago, they realized that the systems were failing. And then when they looked at the reason for their failures, they said that people were doing it ad hocly, right? They were developing systems ad hocly. Hence, they started coming up with suggestion that we need some formal processes, right? And then, of course, over the years, these formal processes have evolved from waterfall to increment to spiral to agile, right? And the earliest one, and of course, we'll not be spending too much time on it, but the earliest one, because you guys know this already, the earliest one is the waterfall. Then you have the incremental. Then you have the spirals. You have your rationale unified. Of course, you can add agile here, right? Now, I'm pretty sure you can ask me a question here that why we are talking about processes, right? This is a software design course. Why I'm talking about processes? Just bear with me for a tick, right? And we'll come to this point. Why I'm talking about this. Let me show you first. If I'm using a waterfall model, I'm pretty sure all of you are familiar with this. You do what? You do requirements first, then you do design, right? Our focus is this for the course. Then you do coding, testing, increment, of course, in a very tightly original waterfall model. Once you come from requirements to design, you cannot go back. Or once you're done into coding, you cannot go back. Now, on the other hand, if you have an incremental model, you do what? You take certain requirements, you design only those requirements, you go through the process of coding and testing, you put them into your integration bucket, you take the second set of requirements, you design them again, only that one which is a new set of requirements, and you go through the process and you keep doing this, right? Is this clear?
Yes.
Okay. Now, of course, there's another approach, which is still incremental, which is very close to today's agile process, which is basically you take a set of requirements, you design those requirements, you go through the process of this testing and coding and everything, and then you actually release it. Okay. Then you take another set of requirements. Again, you design them and go through the process, and then you release them. Okay. Eventually, everything is ready. Now, the question is why I am showing you all of these processes. What is the rationale behind it? What do you think, guys?
Maybe so we can see the big picture.
Yes, absolutely. That's first aim, so that we understand that when we're going to talk about design from Tuesday onwards in a more detailed, we understand that where we are in the development life cycle. Abdul Majid said it's always between requirements and coding. Yeah, that's another observation. Absolutely. Any other reason we have been showing you these different process models?
Yeah, doctor,
To
maybe
know,
you go first.
Yeah, go ahead, one by
to
one.
know, to know the input and the output we will develop.
Yeah, so an input and output of my, for example, because our focus is on design, so input and output of my design. Anything
Yeah,
else?
maybe other reason is maybe choosing different processes maybe gonna affect the way we are gonna design the system.
Spot on, spot on. This is the reason actually, because as someone also said, design is different in each process. Yes, absolutely, as Yahya said. And this is the aim. This is the whole idea why I'm putting this whole picture is because tomorrow down the track from Tuesday onwards, when I'm going to show you class diagram, I'm going to show you, for example, design patterns, the architecture, and I say, okay, you have 5 different options and this is better than the other and so on and so forth. You still should have keep this in your mind that, hey, design at the end of the day, these activities, they're still the same, but what is an input and an output depends on what process model I'm using. Okay, so if I'm using a waterfall process model, my input is all complete set of requirements. While if I'm using something like incremental, rather doesn't matter whether it's continuous or multiple release like agile, I will not have the whole set of requirements being designed in one go, but rather I'll be designing smaller part of it. Now the design doesn't change. The things you do in a design doesn't change, right? But the input, the place of this whole design is impacted by the process you're going to use. Now, let me ask you a trickier question here now. Agile doesn't believe in documentation, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So what's the role of design in Agile then?
I think they have some form of requirements or a smaller version like user stories.
Yep. So for sure they have user stories, right? So they take user stories. Then they believe in coding, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a very small requirements. It's not that detailed.
So what will happen to the design now in Agile?
Is it
Sorry, we lost you. Sorry, not here. Say it again, please.
is it oral by speaking they يعني
So it's not documented, huh?
yeah, no documentation.
No documentation. Any other thought on this, please?
Maybe the design will be close to the coding. You design when you code.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Actually, in Agile, when you're doing coding, then you're taking certain design decisions, probably not formally, but still you're taking design decisions. And of course, as you go through the process of sprints, for example, if you're doing a sprint Agile process, then basically, you keep evolving your design, right?
True.
And of course, there is an architectural decision they do take. So there is a design element. It's not very something similar to what you call a waterfall model, right? But still there is one. Okay, so regardless of the word process model you're using, because they for sure have design. Now the nature of the documentation of the design can vary, and what they really do with that part of design and how formal they go in documentation is another ball game. But they still do have design, right?
I see.
And they also have, for example, in case of Agile, they also have something called refactoring, which is very, very prominent in Agile. When they do the coding, they refactor again and again and again. Right. So the reason I was talking about this today is I'll stop it here, by the way. The reason I was talking about this today is to make sure that we understand that the processes are very critical. This is the very first thing you will be doing during the development life cycle. Design is a very critical task in any design, in any software development process, whether it's a waterfall, agile, incremental. The nature of the documentation, the nature of the inputs and outputs could be different, but you still do the design. Now, inshallah, uh, I'm just trying to be consistent with the both sections, so we stop it here. 3-4 slides are remaining. We'll talk about this inshallah on Tuesday, and then we'll dig into straight into object-oriented design concepts with an understanding that all of us are able to visualize that when I'm talking about design and I'm talking about object-oriented classes and so on and so forth, the input of this design will depend on the process, but the what I do in a design is still the same thing. Everybody's comfortable with this?
Yes.
Absolutely. Alhamdulillah. Any questions,
Yes.
guys? All good?
Yeah, I think it's clear.
It's very clear. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Okay. So yes, so inshallah the syllabus is already available in the Blackboard, right? This lecture of slides, inshallah, I'll also upload into the Blackboard. I have merged the two sections together into one Blackboard. Are you able to access Blackboard?
Yeah, it's there.
It's there. So you're able to access the syllabus, right?
Yep.
So I see
Yes.
a lot of yeses, good, which is very positive news. And I'll be uploading this slide lecture there, inshallah, as well. And the all the announcements and everything will inshallah through will be the Blackboard. The lectures inshallah will be through the Teams, and the assessments when the time comes we'll think about it and we'll talk about it, whether it will be purely Blackboard with an online assessment, or whether we can do a more traditional via the Teams or Zoom with a traditional exam, and you solve it on a piece of paper and scan it and submit it back to the Blackboard, right? So we'll think about it, we'll talk about it inshallah in the due course at the right time, and we'll take a right decision inshallah about this. Any concerns? So with this, I think I'll take it as a positive that no, there's no concerns, everybody's happy. So inshallah, we can close the session now, right? And we can inshallah see you guys inshallah back on Tuesday, right?
Right.
Okay.
I'm gonna try and something while we are here. Let me just try to see if I can take an attendance. I know I can, but I'm just gonna try and see. I'm just gonna try and download an attendance sheet now. I think I'm able to do it. Thank you very much, and see you on Tuesday then, inshallah.
Thank you.
All the best.